Things That Make Us, Life, Loss and Footy, Nick Riewoldt. It's his autobiography. It is written brilliantly by Peter Hanlon. It's an Allen and Unwin publication. It is in all good bookstores. Nick, welcome.
Thank you, mate. It's great to be here. Great to finally step foot in the studio. We've spoken over the phone, oh gosh, I'd hate to think how many times over 17 years. So to actually be here with you live is fantastic.
We're not going to do this book justice in 10 minutes. So let's do it in order. It is Life, Loss, then Footy. You're a proud Tasmanian and German heritage. Your dad wanted to call you Maximilian.
Yep.
No.
Helmet.
Bicks. Can you imagine calling that Maximilian Reiwoldt?
Oh, I reckon it suits.
Serious?
Yeah, serious. And thankfully, Mum won out. Mum usually wins most of the arguments between Mum and Dad. So she won out, and my brother and sister and I were all very happy that we ended up with pretty normal names.
Yeah. Your oppa, is that your grandfather?
Orpa, yep. So that's grandfather. So part of the real attraction for me about writing the book was that I had the blessing of the publisher to not write a cookie-cutter football book, sort of,
It's certainly not that.
From under 8s right through the big time. So I wanted to delve into the things that have made me, because that's something that everyone can relate to. Everyone can finger a moment, a relationship, circumstances, events that have shaped the person that they've become. So that's what I wanted to explore from my point of view, and definitely my heritage was part of that. So Omar and Orpa growing up in Berlin during World War II and surviving that was I thought, a good way to start the book.
Yeah, look, it was just quickly. Sorry, Bicks. He was asked, your Orpa, a question of you when you were young as a star. Did Nick get his talents with balls from him? What was his reply?
Yeah, he said, no, we didn't throw balls when I was growing up. We threw grenades.
A little bit of perspective there. But
see, I love that.
It was interesting, though.
Come on, he's still alive.
He's still alive.
You've got 3 of your 4 grandparents still alive.
Omar and Orpa are in Hobart. They're in their late 80s, and my grandmother on mum's side is still alive as well.
But it was interesting, though, because you said you drew great strength from your heritage, and they were able to relate some of the atrocities that they went through, and you said how that was really important to you. That surprised me.
Yeah, it was, and it was just interesting to know that that's why they are how they are, and that's why they raised Dad a certain way, and that's why Dad raised me a certain way. So it was great to be able to delve back into all of that, because the other thing is, they're old, and when they pass away, all of those amazing stories, they go with them. But now we've got them as a family on paper, albeit in a book, forever for my boys and my grandchildren when I eventually have them, to be able to learn where they've come from.
And you mentioned being a proud Tasmanian and growing up with a family around you. It sounded like a fantastic childhood, and as you get further in the book, it's something you're trying to replicate now with your own family. Yeah,
absolutely. Particularly the east coast of Tassie is a place that's really special to us. We've had a presence on the east coast of Tassie for 7 generations, so to be able to take my kids down there now, it's magnificent. It's just a great way of life.
Tell us about the author, because you're right, it's not a cookie-cutter book. It is just an outstanding story of your life. Tell us about him, Peter Hanlon.
So Peter Hanlon and I was exposed to Peter a few times throughout my footy career, and when I embarked on this journey, I wanted to do it with someone that I felt would be able to really get a lot out of me, and at times that person would have to push. They would have to be sensitive because of a lot of the material that we would talk about, and I just had a lot of respect for Pete. I love his style of writing. He really was able to capture my voice throughout the book, which I think is important. So when the reader's reading it, they know it's my words and my feelings and emotions. So yeah, he did a great job. I started the process with a ghostwriter and finished it with a mate, which was terrific.
You're a perfectionist. All through the book, you say you're wired a certain way as who Nick Riewoldt is. Has that been a good thing?
It has. I think at times that's been my greatest strength as a footballer. Yeah. But it's also been my greatest weakness. So that made me pretty vulnerable early in my career. That perfectionism, and any time I fell short of that big sop, I was quite outward in my emotions at showing that. So the team might have won when I was a young player, but if I hadn't played well, I was really disappointed. I let, I guess, myself be defined by my identity as a footballer and how I performed. And clearly throughout my role as a leader, that was also something that I continually had to work on, because anything short of perfection I struggled to deal with. So I expected a lot of my teammates, and at times, particularly early as a young captain, I didn't, lead our players in the right way. But that's a learning experience, and you certainly evolve as you get more mature.
And I'm guessing over 17 years that got better as you went along. But one thing, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was when I found out how competitive you were. You talked about Justin Kazitsky, who was, you and him were 1 and 2 in the draft, and your careers sort of mirrored each other a little bit at the start. You were filthy that he got picked before you. You played on him at different times, and you lived together, but you still were so competitive, and you almost wanted to bash him up at some stage. Yeah,
it's amazing that we're still as close mates as we are, because right at the start, being taken 1 and 2 in the draft together, both being key position players, we were compared so often early in our careers, and his first year was terrific. He played every game, won the Rising Star. The next year, and I was injured. The next year, he was injured. I played every game, won the Rising Star, won the Best and Fairest. And then in our third year, we were both fit, and Grant Thomas played it beautifully. He was coach at the time. He knew exactly what to do. He played us on each other in an intra-club game. Yeah. And we knew going into the game that we were going to be playing on each other, and we were living together. So we went 2 days living in the same house without speaking a word to each other.
Oh, dear.
Separate cars
no lie,
to the ground?
separate cars to the ground at Moorabbin for our intra-club game, because we just wanted to smash each other.
Who won?
I probably took the first half and he took the second half. We split the points.
That first year in 2000, pick number 1. I forgot this, but Malcolm Blight was your coach.
He was, yep. Yeah, I actually hold a record for the most coaches in consecutive games of footy.
Because your debut was his game he got sacked. Yeah.
I got drafted out of Southport. I played in a premiership. I got injured in the pre-season, hurt my knee. The first game I played that year was round 13. I played for Spring Bowl reserves in the VFL. Yeah. Got promoted the next week, Spring Bowl seniors. Got promoted the next week, AFL debut against the Crows at Colonial Stadium under lights. I had 3 possessions. I had Ben Hart playing on me in my first game. How unlucky is that?
That's unlucky.
So I didn't touch it. We got beaten by 97 points. Malcolm got sacked on the Tuesday.
Jeez.
The following week, Grant Thomas was in as caretaker coach. 5 coaches in 5 games.
That's not bad.
You look like a surfer from Queensland, born in Tassie.
Couldn't surf.
But you couldn't surf.
No.
Why would you look like one and not be a surfer?
Because
you must have been a funny little fellow when you first got to States.
I was. I can only imagine what the senior players thought when I walked in with my board shorts on, and I just felt like I had to live up to the Gold Coast stereotype because had the blonde hair and I was from the coast, so I just said I surfed when I really didn't.
He had 3 managers to choose from. I thought this was interesting as well. Paul Connors, who's still there, John Longmire, who is become a great coach, and Ricky Nixon. You got burnt in the end by him, and it was tough. In hindsight, you would have still probably picked him because he was great at his job.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A point, is your quote.
No, absolutely. He was terrific for me as a young player coming into the game. The way he was, mentored me, and he had all the big guns. Yeah. So it was great to be able to learn from some of those guys as well. But no, Ricky did. He did a terrific job for me up until he didn't, and when it ended pretty badly.
The really tough part of the book for me was the emotional part, was reading about Maddie and her passing and how difficult it was for you. I can only imagine trying to put into words what you're feeling. We have so much difficulty trying to describe it, and the loss was so real when I read the book. So how did you find that? Was it excruciating? Was it cathartic? What was your emotion? No,
it was probably a combination. It was really tough to talk about, but talking about it is important, and it's good. So there were a lot of tears when I was speaking with Pete, and we were going through and talking about that aspect of the book. But the one thing it did do that I'm really grateful for is in the immediate aftermath of Maddie dying, I found it really hard to remember good times and happy memories and remember her as she was, because the last 7 months in intensive care was so horrific, and she became unrecognisable in the end. That's all I could see for a long time was the hospital and the sadness and the struggle. So writing the book made me relive and re-experience all the good times as well.
277 days in ICU, #fight like Maddie. I felt all 375 pages she was there. Every memory, you just were able to weave it back in there, whether it was a footy memory, a life memory. And it was as if she was with your journey all the way, and she was your number 1 fan. She was your number 1 fan, bar none.
Yeah, she was, and I don't want, I guess, people to get the impression that it's a big downer of a book, because there's a lot of great footy stuff in there too for the die-hard footy fans. A lot of good stories, but you're right. I think the one thing it has done is allow me to have great perspective on everything, and losing grand finals and the pain associated with that. At the time, that was the worst thing that had ever happened to me in my life, and I fast forward 5 years, and all of a sudden you're experiencing real loss. So to be able to, I guess, tie that back into the emotions that you feel at various stages throughout your life is a good thing to be able to do.
If that ball bounced in Mooney's hands, you'd be a premiership player.
Yeah.
You close your eyes and see that ball bounce the other way?
I see the ball bounce the other way in 2010. I imagine playing extra time in 2010, which we would now be doing.
Yeah.
I imagine Tom Hawkins' kick in 2009 grand final not hitting the post.
Oh, no.
We've got a score review now. So all of those things are no consolation. We got as close as you possibly can to winning one without winning one, and that will always be a hole in my career and tough to live with. But the effort that went into it, no one could have done anything more.
No.
So it is what it is.
What about your two great mentors in Grant Thomas and Ross Lyon? We talk to Grant infrequently here, and we enjoy his personality. He's a different cat, but firstly, talk about him.
He is. Yeah, he's a different cat, and at times he, I guess, polarises a lot of people because he does things differently. Rotating captaincy, he's not afraid to take on City Hall. He is one of the few people in life that say, I don't care what people think. But he genuinely feels that. He does not care what anyone thinks, and he's very, very honest as a result of that. So really lucky as a young player to have him as a coach. He wanted to produce not just great footballers, but great people as well. So that was great. And Ross Lyon clearly took us to some really big highs, very close to a back-to-back premiership coach with us at St Kilda, and we remain great friends, and he's been a great mentor.
Just on that, he was an intense character. You're an intense character. How did you two get on?
No, very, very well. Yeah. We did. We had a great relationship. The best thing about Ross was he had a great ability to be able to challenge you, but at the same time, he didn't crush your spirits. He did give me one of the best sprays that I've probably ever copped in my career. He walked in at halftime. It was 2009, and we were rolling. I think we won 19 straight. So it was about the middle of the year, and we were playing the Brisbane Lions that Eddie had, and we should have been killing them, and we weren't. We're about to goal up. He walks in with his stats at halftime, and he just eyeballs the group. Del Santo, 1 tackle. Montagna, 1 tackle. Kazichki, 1 tackle. Lenny Hayes, 7 tackles. We love you, Lenny. Rui, 1 tackle.
Oh, I thought it was going to be naught.
For the year. Yeah, so the boys lost it.
For the year.
That's so you didn't have to add that little last bit in, Rossi. So the boys all had a good chuckle, and I haven't lived that one down. They love reliving that one.
The Things That Make Us, Nick Riewoldt. It's in all good bookstores. It's a great read. I go to chapter 12, Being a Saint, and I think people that have been at one club, you put them a little bit more on a pinnacle. I'm looking at one in Bicks and you, Roo. But, gee, Collingwood went close, and Eddie Maguire went real close when you were sitting on a plane. Tell us that story. Yeah,
so it was around the time that the club went through a big rebuild. So Brendan Goddard had gone to Essendon, Nick Del Santo to North Melbourne, Ben McAvoy to Hawthorn. So we got rid of a lot of senior players, brought in draft picks, and we were going down the path of rebuilding. And I knew what that meant. It meant we weren't going to have success in the immediate future, and Eddie Maguire saw an opportunity. So he got me round to his house. We had a beer. He put the sell on me. The next day was the grand final, 2013, Hawthorn Fremantle. Brian Lake had crossed from the Bulldogs to Hawthorn, played in the premiership, won the Norm Smith. The next day I'm flying to Texas. I'm sitting on the plane. My phone beeps. And it's Eddie Maguire. Oh, Rui, I know you're about to take off for Texas. Well, first, I mean, how does he know that? He has spies, like air hostess spies or something.
20-hour flight.
Yep. I know you're about to take off. I want to leave you with 2 words, Brian Lake.
How clever is that?
Yeah. So there I was. I had 14 hours to think about the fact that Brian Lake left the Bulldogs. He went to a big club. He played in a flag, Norm Smith medal. Maybe that could be me going to Collingwood. In the end, being a one-club player meant too much to me, and I stayed. But that's probably as close as I ever got.
Your parents gave you good advice on that. Can you remember the quote they gave you?
Yeah, they did, because it was a pretty significant offer from Collingwood, and at that stage at St Kilda I was on sort of 1-year deals every year, and the advice they gave me was, well, you've had a great career, you've earned money, you're always going to have money. The difference to go to Collingwood is not going to be life-changing money, but the decision to change clubs and not be a one-club player, that will be a life-changing decision. So that really that really summed it up pretty well for me, and I stayed.
And courageously, there's a chapter called Scandals, but it's weaved throughout the book. Scandals at St Kilda. You're there for 17 years. 9 of them were filled with whether it was Stevie Mill, the St Kilda schoolgirl, that photo, coaches sacked and moved on, even Andrew Lovett. It took its toll. But it was great to hear at the end of it that you said your last 4 years with the clean air, you were able to enjoy footy again.
Yeah, and for any player that experiences something like that, what it does is it just puts pressure on the thing that you love doing the most, which is playing footy. And that was the overwhelming feeling I had through any of those, I guess, scandals, which if you play for long enough, you're going to be involved directly or indirectly or in some. But, you know, so it sort of made me think about Joe Watson, watching Joe Watson's press conference when he retired this year, and him talking about he just fallen out of love for the game. I thought that was really sad. So to be able to finish my career with some clean air and really enjoy the last 5 years as a mentor to our young players was something I'm grateful for.
Told you we never do this justice because we are running out of time. You get some great picks, and they're your personal picks as well. One of my favourites is that mark. It doesn't define you, but it was the most courageous mark I think, Bicks, any of us would have ever seen. And there's a great photo of it there, SCG 2004. But I loved your caption. I didn't know this. What did your mum? What did your mum? She rung you.
Yeah, she was furious. She said, if I ever do anything like that again, that'll be it. She'll never watch. Yeah, that'll be it. She'll never watch me play another game in my life. So,
well, you didn't listen to it. Really.
No, I probably didn't do anything quite so silly. But
my word.
Yeah.
Tell us about your knees, because there's a photo in the book again. The great photos behind the scenes of all the syringes full of fluid, and you were draining it in 2013 in particular. You were taking fluid out every week, and then of course at the start of this year you hurt your other knee, and at that time I think everyone in the ground thought it was over. Did you think it was over?
I did.
And did that wear you down over the journey, that having those knee issues?
Yeah, it did. There were periods where it was a real struggle. I mean, physically it's hard, but mentally as well, having to sort of go into a clinic every week, getting the needles stuck in and the fluid aspirated. Yeah, that took its toll, and ultimately that is sort of the thing that's forced my hand with regards to retirement. I couldn't do some of the things that I used to be able to do. Lost a bit of agility, a bit of speed off the mark, and you know, I was still confident that I had some petrol left in the tank. And
you became normal again, as opposed to the best ever.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess potentially I could have played a little bit longer, but you don't know it's the end until it's too late. And I didn't want to end up in a situation next year where, you know, it's round 6, my knee's really struggling, and there's pressure on the club to play me in the reserves, and it would have gotten ugly for everyone. So better to go too early than too late.
And that knee injury at the time, when you thought it was over, was that a jolt to you?
Yeah, it was. I guess I stared, you know, my football mortality in the face for the first time, and that maybe, I guess, softened the blow later on, because I'd already, I guess, experienced what that sensation and feeling of being the end might have been like.
The book has honoured your #1 fan in Maddie, no question, and you, Nick, a man of pure class and professionalism. We've enjoyed it thoroughly over all those years. Be proud, enjoy your family, your next chapter. We look forward to the next book. We really do, and we'll see you at the Burnside 2.0. Nick, well done. Congratulations.
No worries. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all your support over 17 years.